Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over new Alluring Desires matchup spread, kind of talk about some of her good matchups, her bad matchups, and just my overall experience on the hero here early on before national season, kind of see where I put her in the format. And we'll kind of talk about it and get your opinion on it as well. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Discord down below as well as the channel membership. And yeah, we'll get right into it. So a couple things. One, this is just my opinion on the games. I'm not saying this is like definitive. I have played at least a game, preferably more than one, into every hero in the format with the exception of Olympia. I have not played against an Olympia on new. I've even played against Betsy, Viserai, like some more like lesser played heroes, Rhinar, stuff like that. So I have a pretty decent feeling with those games combined with just my general thoughts on where new stands into most of these matchups, and I'll give my reasoning. It might be different based off skill level, right? All of this is me assuming that both pilots are equally skilled, and you know, neither one high rolls crazy, although if high roll potential has a factor in that, I'll let you know on that. So definitely let me know you're down in the comments below. I know there's a couple on here I can already see that people are probably going to disagree with, which is fine. That's the whole fun part about card games, is kind of having the differentiating opinions. But we'll get right into it. So to explain the tiers really fast, heavily favored means like I'm already going into the matchup where I should win, and not the only way, but the main way I lose is one, they mega high roll if they have that potential to do so, or B, I make a mistake. That's the way I look at it. That's the way they win those matchups more times than not, and that's just my opinion. Slightly favored means, like, again, the way I view slightly favored is if neither person high rolls, who's favored, right? If both players play a fair game, who's favored. And the reason I keep mentioning high roll here is because with the Misfill heroes releasing, there's a lot of really dynamic matchups where just certain heroes can just do crazy stuff. And on both sides. And I think a lot of the meta heroes have that high roll potential, so that's why I'd say that. But it's slightly favored in my opinion on an even game, but both players kind of have viability to take it. 50-50 is what it is. Slightly unfavored, same way, where it's Kano's the only one I'm going to talk about. Kano, because Kano might not be in slightly favored. It's just from my experience so far. It's a very weird matchup. Heavily unfavored means like I got to work to win and kind of hope that my opponent makes a mistake or two. So I have to play a perfect game and then, you know, try to take space where my opponent lets me take it. And then we have Illusionist here. We'll talk about that. And then finally, Olympia, I have not tested, which I'll put Olympia somewhere at the end of this video. But yeah, we'll get right into it. So heavily favored again, I am going into the matchup where I think I should win. And the opponent has to do something extraordinary to beat me, or I have to make some mistakes. That's the way I view it. So Arachne, same thing. It's just, I love Arachne, my favorite hero in the game, still my favorite hero in the game, but just the worst assassin by far. Arachne really has to string together Leave No Witnesses and Surgical. Arachne did get Persuasive Prognosis in this set, and they can use it. I don't think it's like a bad thing. I would definitely replace a contract with it just because it can strip a card from hand, but they can't react on it with Cut to the Chase. They're going to have to play like a Spike or a Razor or something like that. So it's a lot less threatening than it would be with a new or even Uziri, who can naturally run those style pumps in their kits. So that's why. Betsy and Bravo. New is just very good in the Guardian. It's completely different for Uziri and Arachne, right? Like Uziri, I think, is slightly favored in the Guardian. Arachne is unfavored in the Guardian. And then New is heavily favored because she can just block really efficiently with defense reactions. She has good equipment block, especially if you do recurring with Black Text. She's able to disrupt from hand and arsenal and deck, and she's able to play for the long game. Originally, Guardian could play for like an end game where they fatigue you just by blocking 6, swinging 6. They can't do that anymore against New. They will deck out pretty much. So yeah, Guardian's pretty simple. Fi also, I've played it a couple times. Fi can just do Fi things, and if you don't draw your disruption, Fi could take it. But it's really on Fi to kind of high roll with Art Wars and stuff, along with not getting hit with any disruption. He's really susceptible. Fi was already, for me, I felt pretty favored into Fi on Arachne, much less New. So nothing crazy there. I also wanted to say, as I'm going through this, the one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning is New has very polarizing matchups. There's not a lot of like really close matchups. It's really in the slightly favored category, but a lot of her matchups are either really good or really bad. She actually for Assassin, which normally wasn't that way other than Illusionist, New is actually very polarizing, I have found so far. So take that with what you may. Dash, I haven't played against Slab Dash yet, although I think that matchup is better. I've only played against like typical dashes. People are running like really hybrid builds right now for some reason. Hybrid build feels really, really favored. Slab Dash, if I had to guess, I would say it's favored because now, like, let's say Slab Dash, if you ever went into an event where you were wanting to pay attention to that deck, you could just run Inductment and Siren's Call, and you could pull their items, and that sucks for them. Like, being able to pull certain things is going to really hurt them. Siren's Call won't hit all of their items, but Inductment, you can just find stuff off top of their deck. And before, Dash was trying to like play to get to those items, but now you can run a lot of hate cards that just grab them. So I think it's pretty favored. Viscerai, I just haven't had any issues with a Runeblade, period. I haven't played against the OTK, but I feel like that version is even bad because I can get around those D-reacts. I can really hurt you a little bit. I'm also very defensive. I can run AB, pitch to it. Like, it's just normally never really an issue. Victor, same thing. Victor is a little bit more difficult, and I think you could even maybe make an argument to put Victor down here if they're running the aggro version, because they can like do some crazy stuff with that version, but they just block really poorly in that version. So right now it's heavily favored until proven otherwise. Rhinar, same thing. Rhinar can give you trouble if they intimidate, go crazy, but really, unless they're like stringing together Blood Rush Bellows, they're just really not above rate. And in order to beat New, you kind of got to be above rate with your value. And Rhinar just doesn't have that. Teklo is the most interesting one. So like when New first came out, I thought Teklo was going to be like just like a meme, right? Because, and it's still really heavily favored, but I was like, man, Teklo literally can't block with equipment once against New once he equips it, because it's an action equipment. It's considered an action card. So if he blocks with his equipment when it's actually in his equipment zone, he's going to lose it automatically on a stealth card, unless he has a way to fabricate and do other crazy stuff in it. So it's really funny to play against Teklo because they can value you with their hand, and you do like auto banish their evos so they can build quickly. But unless they find Singularity like extremely fast, they get to this point in the game where, yes, they may have 3 evos equipped by like turn 4 or 5, but their only hope is to just like try to overpower you to death, because they can't do what Teklo wants to do in that situation, which is value block with the equipment they've equipped, and then you utilize their overray attacks. They can't do that into you because then they'll lose their equipment. So it's a really weird spot for Teklo. I've played against matchup like 3 times, and every time it wasn't close, just because they couldn't play that value game, and it really hurt them. I do think there's a world where Teklo could find their evos like super quick by banishing it through their blocks, then equipping them really fast, then going into Singularity. But it's just, that's a lot of ifs for a deck that can disrupt, and you can just find Singularity in their deck or in their hand or in their arsenal with all your disruption. It just makes it really difficult. So there's that. Then you have Vincent. This is going to be the most different one. Every Vincent I've talked to says it's favorite for them. I have yet to lose to a Vincent. I've played against like 10, and I've played against good ones, not Talishar randoms, good main Vincent players. I'm telling you, yes, Vincent has the high roll potential, and if Vincent hits her nut cards, she hits her nut cards, and she can win. But that's the only way she's winning this matchup. Only way. I literally had a Vincent last night get the ally out on like turn 4. I just didn't attack it. I didn't care. I took their hand every turn. Like, they were on like 5-6 blood debt on turn 6. No way to get it out. And I was playing some sideboard cards that I already am having for like Zen and stuff, like the sensor and stuff, and just name Mavrians guys. They literally, once their boots popped, they couldn't get anything out. So it's really bad. I think the only way Vincent wins this matchup most of the time is just high roll, like insane high roll. Because I can see times when they don't want me to, they want me to hit because they want me to banish cards, and I'll just banish. Like, I had a hand last night where they had a Read the Runes, a Phantom Wraith, and something else in hand when I revealed their hand to banish with Persuasive. Well, not Persuasive, Agony. And I just chose Read the Runes. I was like, okay, I'm not going to give you like more blood debt. You're going to have to do it yourself. Like, there's ways to play around them trying to fill their banish zone. I've just had a little trouble with it, and maybe it's different later on. But if you're a really, really good Vincent player out there, let me know. Hit me up in the Discord. We'll play more. I would love to be proven wrong. I love Vincent. I've played the hero. It's fun. I just had very little trouble with it. Next one's Max. I've only played this a handful of times. I haven't had super much trouble. They can't really run defense reactions in EU because they just can't. Because they're trying to play for the hyperdriver mech plan. Overpower is not as scary into you because you run so many reactions. You can block it out very efficiently. Yeah, it's just not too hard. If they do get it out really quickly, though, they can string together like a high octane turn and really blow you out. Like that's always a possibility with Max, but generally it's not that big a deal. So yeah, there's a lot of matchups that New is heavily favored into, but there's also a good amount of matchups that she doesn't feel good into. Like I said, it's a very polarizing hero. I think she's like an AT hero, one of the top heroes in the game. She has a lot of really good matchups, but then a lot of really bad matchups. So we talk about the slightly favored. Ninja is slightly favored. You can disrupt them and really do a lot of stuff, but both of these ninjas, the thing that Zen and Katsu both have, Zen even more so, is they can just block you out and play. Now they have to be careful with the stealth blocks because they don't want to block like a bonds and then banish the bonds, and it doesn't really help their game plan. But they can just block your daggers and block like other relevant attacks with their combo pieces and just set up for a combo mid game where they're chipping you down to like 30 and then they hit you for like 30 plus and take tempo and then try to kill you. And with Zen, he can literally do that in back-to-back turns if it lines up right. So it can get a little dicey when they do their thing, but I do think it's favored for both ninjas. Dio, same thing. It's kind of like Vincent, but not quite as drastic. Dio struggles a lot in Neo because she runs a lot of non-blocks, so it's really easy to disrupt her. Like being able to take an entire play set of boom grenades out really hurts her. Taking out an entire set of high octanes potentially really hurts her. Like there's just some funny stuff you can do with Agony and Persuasive. But yeah, overall, if she does her thing and like there's turns right where Dio can just hit you for 40 and it's insane. And if she does that, she can win, but that's about it. Next one's Bolton. This one has a big caveat. I think, and I'm kind of telling on myself here, if Bolton's played Sabres more, I think this matchup would be awful if it was Sabres, like defensive Sabres. But I just don't ever see that build. I'll only see Raiden. And maybe there's a Bolton player out there that can tell me why is Sabres just not as viable. Because when it's Raiden, it's almost free unless they just completely draw the nuts. Like you just fatigue them like every time, and you have a lot of reaction cards, so you can block their cards to not buff it. It's just with Raiden, I think I've lost to a Bolton like once or twice out of like 20 plus games. And on Assassin in general, I rarely lose to a Bolton. Then we have the two brutes. These two are both S tier decks, and I think these honestly could probably be 50-50. I would put them in the 50-50 category. KO feels like kind of a coin flip. If you draw your disruption constantly, especially hand disruption like Persuasive, Surgical, Agony, they prohibit them from doing anything. Siren's Call is very, very good to them. Like being able to snipe their blue that they need in order to like fuel their turn is so good. Actually, I'll put Levi back up here. So KO, yeah, but if they draw their nuts turns where they're doing like Wild Ride and a Claw into Bear Fangs and then Blood Rush and a Claw into Wild Ride into something else with Sash, like they can just do some nutty stuff and you can't keep up with it. They just do KO stuff. So it's a coin flip. Levi feels really good so far. Talented Levi's will make this a lot harder. I have played a couple that I trust a lot that I'd say the matchup's closer to 50-50, but generally on a normal day and normal skill level, I think it's favored for you. Again, Siren's Call is so good in that matchup, being able to snipe their good blue that they may need, being able to take cards, be able to fuel their banish zone is very tricky because sometimes you can help Leviah go into consumed really easily. So you have to be really careful on which cards you banish. Like there's times if an Agony hits and you see like a Dread Screamer, let's say you see a Dread Screamer, a Deadwood Rumbler, an Endless Maul, and something else, I would probably take the Deadwood Rumbler. I'd rather them only have that and when they flip to consume than 3 Dread Screamers, right? So you have to be really careful with what you banish if you have the option to do so. But other than that, I think it's slightly favored. The other two 50-50 matchups I have are Uziri and Azalea. I think Uziri's in a lot better spot than people think she's in. She can run so many disruptive tools now. Weakest Link is a huge upgrade, and she's able to like almost play like Azalea where she does toolbox disruption and is able to really like hurt you. Also, in this matchup specifically, in New versus Uziri, Uziri plays really well off 2-card hands and can play defensive pieces very well. So she's if y'all are playing the value game of block with 2 cards, send 2 cards, she's going to win because she has better 2-card hands. She just does. They're more disruptive too, and so because of that, it's a little bit tricky. You kind of have to hold cards against Uziri at times to win that matchup, in my opinion. Not all the time, but at times, and that can when she punishes you. So it's really interesting, though. You can chain disruption. The assassin mirror is always very close. The assassin matchup in general, regardless of what assassin it is very close. Except for Arachne now. Arachne feels really bad for them. Also, I haven't played a ton of there's not a lot of ton of talented players playing Arachne, and that's no disrespect to people currently playing the hero. It's just most people that play the hero are playing it for passion, including myself. So it's a little bit harder. Azalea is a 50-50. It's similar to KO. If they do the big stupid thing and they dominate you a bunch of times, that you probably lost. If you draw disruption constantly and keep them off Arsenal, you probably win. It's so swingy. It's very, very, very swingy matchup. If no one high rolls, it's definitely assassin favored, but typically someone high rolls in this matchup. So this is the weird one. Kano could easily be down here, and honestly, I'm gonna put him down here. We're gonna delete this row. Kano is at the top of heavily unfavored into slightly unfavored. Kano can just kill you. Literally, you could be at 40 life and he could be at 2 and you die. Kindle's insane. The games, the thing that you have in the Kano that you didn't have before is like if you play Bonds of Agony, he has to respect that card so hard because if it hits and he has a Blazing in hand or a Wildfire in hand, you take the entire playset out of his deck, which is awful for him, right? So there's and if Persuasive Prognosis hits, like you could snipe one from his hand. Like before, Kano kind of just had to protect his arsenal really, other than Surgical Extraction and Shakedown for Uziri. So it wasn't too bad. Now he has to protect his hand so much, and he can't always just value block. It really hurts him a little bit. And if you're on like AB2, AB3 with Oasis, it makes it even harder for him. I think if you respect Kano, it's not too bad of a matchup. I think it's like true 45-55, but great Kanos can just kill you, so it's really hard. The next one, and this is like the third to worst matchup, is just Warrior in general. Warrior is very difficult. I'm still trying to figure that matchup out. I figured out that I should be running Mistblade. The problem is you're never leading with Mistblade. You should be leading with Skill Peeler. If you play Mistblade and they block it with Dynamos, you just traded an entire card for them not using their leg piece, which is horrible value for you. It's really good for them. So you almost never lead with Mistblade. The only time you can use Mistblade is when you double dagger, but it's still better than Spire's Bite, right? So it's really weird. I think it's definitely winnable. I mean, I won a match up yesterday, but my buddy kind of made 1 or 2 mistakes that is uncharacteristic of him, which helped me get the space to win it. It's always been a hard matchup for Assassin. I think really good Warrior players make it difficult. I think Asai's a little bit more unfavored than Dorinthia because she can play for the Raise an Army game plan, so she has an alternate win condition. That way you have to really respect her gold, whereas Dorinthia, it's just like numbers math game. So yeah, it's unfavored. I think there's definitely tech cards you can run like that. All you got is very, very good into them. Inertia Trap is very good into them. So if you ever got into a local meta where you just have a lot of Warrior players, running those tech cards really helps. It's a close matchup. Like, it's really funny because I think it's heavily unfavored, but the matchup's always close. Like, I never get blown out by these decks. You're always going to lose by like 5 or 6 life when you lose. So it's definitely a work in progress. It's a rep-based matchup. You have to understand like your outs into those matchups, what you have left in deck, all that good stuff. The good thing about New that is different is she can play for a deck out, which you couldn't do in Arachne or Uziri. Because of the Mask of Recurring Nightmares, you never block with that piece ever, because your alternate win condition is utilize Mask to make them banish cards from hand and eventually deck them. If you can keep your life total high enough and be able to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. The second to worst matchup for New is Riptide. Riptide's very good in the meta. It is the most slept on hero. I'm seeing like top players put Riptide in D and C tier. Even last night, an amazing player, way smarter than me, Michael Hamilton, put him in D tier. I just think it's wrong. I think he is a top A tier hero. He's very good in all 3 Misfail heroes. He's good in aggro. He's good into he's like 50-50 coin flip in the brute. He's good in the mech. He's good in the warrior. Like, it's funny how much this year is being slept on. Regardless, it's pretty bad for new. You don't banish a lot of cards from them that's even remotely useful. They have a lot of defense reactions that can affect you, especially if they're running stuff like Boulder Trap, Pendulum Trap. They can deck you even more. This matchup's not favored for you. You have to really high roll and hope to God that maybe they're on an aggro variant and they're not fine with a mid-range package, which is the stronger list right now. And maybe they didn't find their traps early. You can like fuel your turn that way, but other than that, it's pretty unfavored. And then we have Illusionist. Good lord. This is where Talishar data is going to lie to you. So right now, Talishar has this as a 40-60 matchup with Enigma, and this is a 30-70. It's worse than that. That's with, I'm sorry, that's just with new pilots. I'm not going to say bad pilots, just new pilots. If you play a talented Illusionist player, you should not win that match. The only way you win is if they play like, excuse my French, an absolute bonehead. That's the only way you're winning that matchup. They have to make insane mistakes to lose. Or you have to high roll like literally the straight gas every turn with all your tech cards and they draw bad. Like that's the only way you're winning the Enigma matchup. Us testing this matchup with 3 assassins that are doing nothing but try to make a list to beat it, that still is like an assassin list. It isn't just like a meme, like, you know, basically anti-Enigma list. We're still like 20-1 in the last 20 some games against this. It's just not good. Prism's even worse. You can go for the deck out plan with Prism, right? Block the first Herald, see what they do on the second, but they'll just play for the loop. You can't always do that into them. It does help a little bit in Prism because they're a little bit weak to disruption, but it's still really bad. I think both of these matchups, like you definitely tech for them because they are your worst matchups. Like you want to try to give yourself a chance, but I'm this close to saying like don't tech for them because it's no point. Like against Enigma, I was running a list that had all the disruption tools you normally have, but then it had Enlightened Strike, Looking for Scrap, Codex of Blood Rot, one of Spreading Plague, Scar for a Scar even because you're going to be lower life most of the time, and 5 Pick the Pieces. Still couldn't win the matchup against a good Illusionist because they block better. Like the more refined lists aren't just running all instants; they're actually blocking. It's just bad. Like you're not winning that matchup more times than not. So that's where I'm at with that. Same thing in Prism. It's just really bad. Like these matchups, I would say Enigma and Prism both are like 90-10. If I had to give an arbitrary number, it's so bad, which is what's going to make it hard for new to really shine. Is in order for new to win a big event, you're going to have to avoid these matchups. Like you're going to have to gem luck and not hit these matchups. You can somewhat win these matchups, right? You can play really well and capitalize on one opponent mistake and win these 4. This matchup, they have to make multiple mistakes and you have to high roll. Like both of those things have to happen. So that's where that's at. Olympia is the next one. If it's Desi Olympia, I think it's pretty good for you. I think it's like slightly favored. If it's not Desi, like Axis, it's heavily favored. That's probably where I'd put him. So we'll just put him in slightly favored for right now, like at the top. But yeah, not too bad. So that's where I'm at with new. Overall, she's really good. Like Illusionist sucks massively. But overall, like if you're telling me like my only bad matchup is one class, and then I have like 1 or 2 that I really just need more reps into to like try to sure up, I'm okay with that, right? Like a lot of the formats she's better into, really good in a brute mech, or like good or better, really good into brute mech, some warrior, aggro, right? She has a place, and I think we might end up having a triangle meta where it's like aggro, illusionist, disruption, which is like Azalea new, stuff like that. I think we could have this like triangle meta eventually, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. You might have a different opinion. That's totally fine. I'm willing to hear it. Let me know your experiences on it. And if you really feel strong about something, go down the Discord down below. Reach out to me. We'll play some games in the Discord. Have some fun. See how good or bad stuff actually is. But all of these heroes I've played at least one game into it, with the exception of Olympia. And this is kind of my thoughts on each hero overall, and based off how I've played in Assassin. But we'll see how New does in the upcoming national season. I think she'll do pretty good. We'll have to see. With Zen, I think being perceived the best deck in the format, I think she's in a good spot because she can counter Zen pretty well. Not like heavy counter, but she counter one of the better decks to counter Zen. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not me, it's totally fine. Go to another creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing this game. And I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.